Those of you who have just joined in, if you have any question or concern that you want to be addressed during this session, please mention it in the chat section, please. Akshay, yes, you're supposed to ask question primarily through chat. The reason is that there are a lot of us on the call, and it will not be possible for me to unmute most of you and all the questions that been asked during the session. So the easier option is that if you write down all the questions, and that'll be easier for us to try and see if we can address all of them. Yeah, Anjun, thanks for your question. So we'll try to take it up during the session.
Yep.
Okay, so it's 3 p.m. in my watch, so we can start the session now.
All right.
Just a minute. Let's see. Okay, so welcome everyone. First of all, I really want to thank you for taking 1 hour out of your work schedule. I know what it means, and I truly value that. I hope this 1 hour you'll find great value for your digital marketing, and in particular the social marketing initiatives that you're particularly involved in. So today we have a very, very interesting session. The topic of today's session is how to build a really successful viral marketing app. One of the major advantage offered by social media compared to other media platforms is viral reach. And if you're thinking of acquiring viral reach, you can't think of ignoring applications. Like applications, one of the primary reasons why people create application is actually to acquire the viral reach that is available in the social media platform. And today we have with us Rajat Garg. It's my privilege to really have him here today. He is the CEO of Social Apps HQ, which offers one of the largest platform of Facebook applications for businesses. I was checking out the statistics on his LinkedIn profile, and one interesting fact that I could note is that the Social Apps HQs is the application developed by Social Apps HQs has been used by more than 1 million business pages so far. So I'm sure there is a lot that we can learn from him. And that's exactly what I want to hear, and I'm very, I'll be listening very keenly to all that he has to share. So before I actually hand it over to him, I just wanted to set the logistics first. All of you are in muted state right now, and if you have any question or concern, just put it down in the chat section. And this session, we'll have a sort of a brief presentation for about 20-25 minutes, which will set the context for the discussion. And after that, we'll take up as many questions as possible. And my commitment is that we should actually try to address each and every question that is being asked. But let's see how many questions we're able to address by the end of the session. So this is a 1 hour session, right? So before taking any further time, over to you, Rajat. You can continue now. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Kapil. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be able to speak to such a large audience online. Using various tools. So a little bit of background about Social Apps HQ and a little bit of background about myself. Primarily, I'm an engineer from DC and then Stanford, and then as the fate will have it, I moved into business side and started Social Apps HQ around 2.5 years back. We are the largest Facebook app store with 29 apps used by 1.3 million Facebook pages. We also have a few other products like social media monitoring, post planner, ad optimization, so on and so forth. That's it about Social Apps HQ. So over these 29 apps used by so many businesses, we have spent over 2.5 years optimizing each and every aspect of it, and really figuring out the maths behind the app versus just the creative aspect of it. I think there are lots of agencies in the country globally that think about the creative aspect of doing social media marketing or doing brand marketing, but we have always been focused much more on the technical side of it. So we talk not about how to build an app, but more about what things you should really care about that will drive not 10 visitors but 100 visitors to your app, not 100 visitors but 1,000 visitors to your app, in more of an automated fashion. So um, although everybody talks about viral marketing and almost everyone has heard about this definition, in our view, the most raw definition is if a usage or participation by one automatically encourages at least one other user to participate as well. And the key here is minimum friction. So, think about the age-old story related to the chessboard where one guy says, hey, give me uh, uh, dana give me the grain of 2 grains and then on a chessboard and then 4 and 8 and so on and so forth. And the king realizes that, okay, this is going to be more than what he has in store. So it's really that particular phenomena, leveraging that particular phenomena or concept into your apps, into your social media marketing efforts. Why should you bother about it in first place? Um, Facebook is really an awesome place where a lot of data is willingly contributed by users across the board. So there are over a billion users on Facebook, and there are a lot of stats around it. But through an app, you will be able to capture very detailed information about user, name, picture, watch detail, um, what they like, what they don't like, so on and so forth. It can help you drive a lot more traffic to your website. Um, so by doing things like posting activity to newsfeed, encouraging users to share it to newsfeed, posting for and finding connected. And of course, the other key part is the entire friend graph. So you're able to find friends and their details as well as invite them.
I can see you now.
All right, guys. I'll just repeat this real quickly so that if I missed a bit of it, then we can recap. So there are 5 key points that a lot of apps miss out on. One is permissions, interaction within the app, frictionless sharing, inviting friends, and being mobile friendly. And I'll discuss in detail each one of them. The with permissions is less is more. Uh, I find lots and lots of apps trying to basically capture everything about a user, whether it is friends, birthdays, and whatever. Like they'll try to list all the 50 permissions that the user can give, and they'll take all of them. Uh, what we have found, if you take less permission, you get a lot more acceptance. So if you're asking just for email, we have seen in the range of 80 to 85% acceptance rates. If you ask for content use rights, so the way I'm defining content use is my content, like my location, my photos, my news feed, if you're trying my likes, if you're trying to get the rights to that, people are somewhat uncomfortable, but you'll still get 50, 55% acceptance. But if you're asking for offline access, like posting on his newsfeed when he's not online, posting to friends, controlling his pages, unless your app is really um, built for that particular purpose in mind, don't ask for it because your acceptance rate will be a lot lower, like 15-ish%. It's far higher than outside Facebook ecosystem, but within Facebook ecosystem, you can still get pretty high conversion rates. Uh, One of the other things that I have noticed in a lot of apps is they're not really thinking about who their user is in Facebook. Um, Most of the users suffer from ADD, attention deficit disorder. So they really are not going to sit and fill out a form for you unless it's really, really incentivized and it's incentivized in a way that is very relevant to them. They're not going to do it. So make sure the interaction, overall interaction is designed to be liked. Uh, People are able to, walk in to the app, do what you want them to do, and go out of the app without having to type anything. Whenever you'll ask users to type, especially within Facebook ecosystem, you will see a very high drop-off. Um, an ideal example will be Hot or Not website, and there's an app called Photo Passion. It basically gives you only two options. They show you a picture, and they ask you to love it or skip. We also built a similar app for Make My Trip, um, called where the campaign was for test related to people will get free tickets to go to Tuscany, and they have to upload a picture, and then others will have to vote on it, but not really vote. They basically are taken through a gallery, and they can click to love it or skip. And you'll be surprised how many um, people come back because of its lightweight interaction, and how many other people come because um, of the sharing of that particular content in frictionless way in newsfeed. Uh, so if there are two things. One, a lot of times we see people making other developers or campaign managers making share, getting users to share things that they will not share with their friends once or twice, maybe because their boss is sitting on their head, but they will not really share it with their friends. So don't expect your users to share the same. Um, Make it frictionless. Use open graph integration that Facebook provides, and post those pictures, post whatever the content you want users to share. It should be obvious to them, but it should be frictionless. Um, and it should be built into the user flow that he doesn't really have to think about it. You have to be careful about it. If you get too far, your app, people will report that share, and your app will be banned. We have found uh, personalized pictures will get you around zero 0.8 users for every share back to app. So, for example, if you got 100 users in to your app, and 90 of them will you are able to get them to share something because it's built into the flow. Then, because of that, it will have 19 to 300 friends on average, those many impressions, but 72.8, 72 people will actually come back by clicking those on those pictures and come back to your app. So that may be, that is something that you have to strive for. And if it is 1x, then, again, it goes back to the chessboard analogy, and your app will be growing, will keep growing. You can, one of the tricks within invitations is you can auto-select 50 of their friends. But if you don't show the relevant friends, a lot of the users will not click on sending that invite. So make sure it is relevant based on your application. You can drive relevance by looking at people with whom he have interacted earlier, people with whom he have more things in common, like more likes in common, people who are in the same city for geolocation data, um, so on and so forth. If you are looking at promoting a mobile app, then people who have smartphones. So you can filter filter the 300 friends to bubble down to 50, 70, 100 friends and select 50 of them that are much more relevant based on your audience, based on the app that you're building. On average, you will see 10% click through on invitations and a lower acceptance rate. Uh, but from branding perspective, as well as when they see the images and the sharing happening over there, these guys are much more likelier to click on that content and come back to your app. So it's much more of a seeding of relevant users and making them aware, giving them a poke that, hey, this is something that is of interest, should be of interest to you. And when they see it next time, they'll come to your app. This is something that we didn't realize until very late. Although there's a lot of noise around around Facebook going mobile, around how many people are on mobile phones and this and that. But Facebook itself prohibits third-party apps to be shown on mobile. So we didn't really develop a mobile version of our apps for a very, very long time. But when we looked at our stats, we realized that 30% of people coming to our apps are coming through mobile. So even though Facebook is not showing it on the page, people are sharing these, when they're participating in contests and all, they're seeing them in newsfeed, and they're clicking on smart URLs which take them to a web version of the app. And that particular user base was almost 30% of people coming to our site. So that is something you have to take care of, especially people on Facebook, especially people participating in these type of activities. There are large number of people have moved on to mobile part of it. There, in past 2.5 years, lot has changed within Facebook ecosystem. Earlier, the design used to facilitate that you can add 20, 30 apps, whatever number you want, and pretty much it was very flexible. But last March, almost a year back, they've changed the design to such in a way that there's only place for 4 tabs, out of which 1 is there. So you can at most have 3 tabs. So the focus has changed from literally being an extension of your website to much more of being being a community, building a community, and growing that community. So apps that really work well in that particular context are various types of contests and sweepstakes. People love to get rewards. People love to get to share it. If the app is designed well, they will submit the information. They'll click. They'll share. Get more people back into the app, so on and so forth. One of the apps that we worked that was used by a company called Brush Buddies, they use it for promoting a singing toothbrush, and it basically got them to rank in Twitter trending in UK for 37 days straight. So there was so much of sharing and tweeting and everything that happened because people recorded their videos and uploaded them and got other people to share it. That got them to trend in Twitter for 37 days straight. So at the end of the campaign, they had like 60 million impressions in terms of um, how many people actually saw their event. There are 40 plus case studies that we have done. The link is here. If you go to our site, you'll be able to find it in the footer. Go through them. I'll really encourage that. You'll get an idea of how different companies have actually used it effectively and to what extent. We have shared real numbers as to how many votes they received, how many entries they received, and in some cases where it was possible, how many impressions and uh, other activity that happened around it. So that's the end of my small presentation. Um, we are offering a coupon code DV10 off, so it's 10 off for everybody who is participating here. And I purposely kept a chart so that we can open it for Q&A.
Okay, so thanks Rajat. Thanks for a very insightful information on how to really create successful viral apps. So we've been receiving a lot of questions, so I'll just take up all the questions one by one. But before moving on to all the questions, I want to ask you a couple of things. One is, in terms of the promotion of an app to get the initial set of users. So, I mean, you talk a lot about the guidelines to follow to make sure that we really get that viral reach that is available in terms of creating that viral loop and the engagement loop to make sure that that whole thing really spreads fast and get into the user's newsfeed. But to get that initial set of users, what do you suggest? I mean, if I have a page with a good fan following, should I purely rely on it, or should we keep some budget for the advertisements for the particular to get that initial user? So what's been your take on that?
I think it's mixed. So companies like Make My Trip, Snapdeal, GoIbigo, whenever they have used um, these type of apps, they already have a huge database. So, and huge number of people who are already liking it, these pages. So, for most of them, it's and pay them some money, which is usually a lot lesser than what you'll end up paying Facebook, and get them to talk about your contest. Uh, so one company called fragrancenuff.net, uh, they work, they have started working with a couple of magazines in US, and they're running these contests in participation with them, in partnership with them. So that drives a lot of traffic back to their app and back to the promotions that they're doing. So I believe between three of these, you are very much covered in terms of what you can do to drive them. One more thing, there are communities of people who are interested in receiving free stuff, in participating in contests like contestgalaxy.com and few other websites. So if you post your contest and all the other stuff, uh, then you'll be able to get quite a bit of traffic from those sites. Just be wary of the type of traffic you are getting. You'll get traffic, but the problem with that traffic is it may not be very targeted. So if you're targeting moms who just had babies, you may find a guy, 15-year-old boy participating in your contest, which you cannot prevent anyway, but you will encourage all kind of people coming to your contest and maybe spoiling it.
Got it, great. Thanks a lot. So I'll just take up a few more questions that people have. So let me see. Okay, let me start from this question. Santosh Bhardwaj, he's asking a question. Permission is a great topic. Just this side of it. Yeah, so permission is a great topic. Can an app access more data of the user than as defined in an app?
Uh, Not right away. If you look at companies like Hootsuite, they do not ask a lot of permissions upfront. But what they do is they bake into the workflow like, hey, I want to manage my Twitter account. Authorize your Twitter account and start managing it. In many cases, you don't even need to authorize it, and you can still do that. But companies are a good app will bake it into the workflow versus asking all of that upfront. That is where the huge difference is. There are ways to get data on people, but Facebook closes every loophole quite fast. So whatever exists today will not exist tomorrow, and your app may get banned. So I prefer and I do not encourage people getting into all those kind of stuff.
Okay, great. Asmita, you're asking me to unmute you. You have some questions, so I'm unmuting you. Asmita, can you hear me? Asmita, I've unmuted you. Is there something that you want to ask? Okay, Asmita, it will be great if you can write it down somewhere in the chat section. Uh, okay, so Gaurav wants to know if there are some good e-commerce apps within the Facebook wall.
So within Facebook wall is actually pretty limiting. There's some flash-based apps that have come out, but uh, not really very exciting. So there are apps that sit on a tab on Facebook page. We have one. There are a few others as well. ShortStack has one. There are a few others as well. But there's nothing that really does a good job sitting within a wall.
Okay. So then another next question is by Nitesh. Have you worked on Facebook Ads API, or are you thinking in that direction in terms of designing some application to manage apps, Facebook ads, and do you know of any good case study in that regard?
So we do a bit of work with Ads API. So we haven't really exposed it publicly because what we found a lot of our users is that running ads is one thing, but making sure that ads creative and everything else is in line is a whole different thing. So we have an internal access that we use to run the ads. People send the campaigns to our run, and we take care of it.
Yes. Okay. Uh, Anything else you want to add to that? Or,
I think that will be all.
sure.
There is a lot of opportunity in Ads API because Facebook is working actively on it, especially the retargeting and many other aspects that have come up recently. Uh, we can talk more about it. I'll share my email, my phone number. If someone is really interested in knowing more about it, we can talk offline on that.
Um, the next question is actually asked by Akshay. He's saying, what is your take on the web or a mobile app for a B2B company? And I mean, just wanted to ask one question. Are you, when it comes to creating viral app, you've been I mean, you've done a lot of work in terms of within the Facebook context, but as far as the Twitter is concerned or other mobile app is concerned, so how do you think as an organization one should strategize which platform to adopt? If you could throw some light on that.
So see, it really depends on your audience and what your overall objective is. But right now, if I was there, I'll prioritize Facebook, then mobile, then Twitter for my own organization. Uh, because for Facebook has a built-in audience that is already there. There are easy ways to pull people into a Facebook ecosystem, Facebook page, and leverage them. Mobile app takes a little longer to develop, uh, and it takes quite a bit of time to drive people to the mobile app. Twitter is fine, but there's a lot less room to do much with Twitter. So out of those three, this is my usual priority. On the question related to B2B application, we consider ourselves B2B uh, B2B company. So we have basically started using HTML5 and responsive design to make sure that our users are able to access it on mobile, access it on tabs and everywhere else. So you know, with any if you're a travel company, um, transactions are not really going to happen a lot on a mobile app. But PNR, looking up the PNR status, looking up your ticket details, looking up your flight details, is it on time, is it late, booking of your seat, all those activities nowadays have happen on mobile. So uh, as a company, you have to look at what type of audience you have. Are they mostly on the move? And what are the use cases that you need to address when they're on the move? So in Social Apps HQ itself, uh, we have not shown all the features that we have on the HTML5 version of the app, of the site, because we believe people are on the move. They're not going to set up an app on it, but they want to monitor how is their app doing, how is social media monitoring doing. So that's how to think about
Right. Great. So another question, Saurabh, you are asking a question. Can you share some free and low-cost way to promote other than Facebook ads? I think Rajat has already shared a number of ways apart from ads which you can use to promote your app. So that's already done. Atul, you're asking a question that he has around 25,000 users on his page, which are American citizens, and they've acquired it in 10 days through media buy. Can you suggest some contest to reach out to the maximum audience, as only 16% are targeted to updates?
Okay, and is there, I don't know what type of company um, that is and what their objectives are. So it's a retail. I think Atul just showed standard retail. So for an e-commerce type company, there are two, three things. One, um, try to incentivize people based on their activity on your Facebook page. So the top fans app, our company plus Bhushaka plus few others uh, that provide that kind of app. They measure the activity that is happening on page and they rank people. On average, you'll see 30% uplift in the engagement by using one of these products. Number two, if you're looking at retail, say if it's a women specific retail, then you can play on, or if there are coupons or if there is something sports stuff, you can say, hey, people, whoever buys it, anything, take a picture of the product when it comes to you and post it on your site, post it in the photo contest. and anyone, the one who wins will win a $250 voucher from our company. So it's a good way to engage a person who has picked an app, who has bought a product from you, who is a right target customer, and also give them something more so that they are going to come back and buy again from your company. So that way you can drive repeat buying behavior as well.
Okay, guys, if you want Rajat or me to elaborate on any particular point, just mention it back in the chat section whenever we are answering your question. So there's another question asked, right, Rajat?
So Atul is asking for phone number. I'll share my phone number with everyone who is on the attendee list. I'll share it with Kapil. Kapil will share it with you all.
Sure.
And you guys can get in touch with me anytime.
Sure, great. Guys, you will in any case receive an email about an update of this event, and in that I'll send you the contact details of both of us. Just a minute. Email sometime tomorrow. Okay, so there are actually a lot of questions coming up. The next is from Hitesh. Hitesh is asking, for an online reputation management, can we have a text-based match algorithm to be placed in app in search through social network website and gather
Yes.
relevant information automatically? It's an interesting question. Yeah, so if you could.
So check out social media monitoring, search for social media monitoring tools. Most of them do that. We have a social media monitoring product as well that does that. There are certain limitations. In Twitter, most of the data is public, so you can pretty much search through everything that is available. Um, on Facebook, if it is private profiles, you can't pull it. But if it is public profile or data is posted on any public page, group, you can pull it. So, for online reputation management, companies like Go, IBGO, a few government uh, agencies, they use us for figuring out what is being said about them, what is how the sentiment is around certain topics, certain policies that they have made, so on and so forth. And the best part is it's not limited to just, there's some tools that claim to be doing online reputation management and they're limited to Twitter and Facebook. But you'll find good tools that will do reputation management, that will search through pretty much any review site, mouthshot.com and everything, forums and discussion board, news sites, blogs, everything across the public web, and basically provide you with all the data and insights on top as well, like what's the sentiment, uh, what is trending. You can find like which company broke the news story related to which newspaper broke the story related to a band, um, and figure out that guy, or which one broke the story around DLF and Vadodara scam, and figure out how that whole thing propagated, so on and so forth. So it's pretty interesting. We have a lot of focus on that particular product right now. It's an extremely challenging product, but it's very, very interesting.
Right. So guys, look for all the listening and monitoring tool. And I think Social App HQ also has one, so you can, those of you who are thinking in that direction, you can consider them as well.
And I'll answer take one more thing here. There's always a question around manual monitoring versus automated monitoring tools and the value add, and as well as free versus paid, like social mention and TweetDeck and Seismic and this and that versus the actual industry strength social media monitoring tools. It's night and day. we have cases where I walked into an office of some senior um, executive, um, and he says, "Oh, we do monitoring," and he had this iPad opened up, and us, I'll tell you, senior police officer, and he had this iPad opened up, and he was monitoring the entire thing. And it's like, I'm looking at everything, and he gave us the keywords that he wanted to monitor, and we basically, found uh, 15,000 mentions per day around the keywords that he was looking for, 4 or 5 keywords that were happening, and he was blown away. So the problem is that you will miss out on 98, 99% of data um, when it comes to free tools versus paid tools, especially when there are higher frequencies uh, in the ecosystem. So if it's like, 5 people talk about your obscure B2B brand, then you can use any monitor tool and that's fine. But if you're doing it for something that is popular, there will be 1,000 mentions in a day, and your free tool will capture like 50 or 70 or 100. So that's the biggest difference in terms of data capture, and then of course the analysis and everything else. Let me just tell you that we have around 400 servers that are dedicated to monitoring. So there is a reason why people are charging money for industrial strength monitoring.
Got it. So that's, I think that will be relevant for a lot of us. So it may not be that there's not too much discussion around your brand name, but there may be too much discussion around the offering that you have or the industry that you belong to. So it's up to you what volume of conversation you want to capture and engage with. So if you want volume, go with the paid one. Great. So Rajat, before I take up more questions, one of the questions that I have is, last year there was a lot of talk about build the open app application, open graph application, and all the Pinterest and all those apps and all were evolved at that time. Now the sort of importance of the open graph apps has sort of reduced in the newsfeed algorithm. So what is the current thing that where the Facebook is heading towards? Like, what are your suggestion on what kind of apps are Facebook giving advantage to, or what do you think? Where is the future of the apps heading towards within Facebook platform?
Uh, I think Facebook as an ecosystem um, wants really value-added stuff, and in a way they're moving towards, they've already declared their intention uh, towards building a lifeline of user. So if you are a company that has a health product or that has an e-commerce store or that is that helps you track cycling, or is a mapping application or travel application, then you have to think about weaving into their entire Facebook open graph, um, uh, and basically be part of their timeline, their lifeline. And when the other person is coming and seeing it, they say, "Oh, 2 years back I went to uh, Thailand for a trip, and by the way, the pictures have a thumbnail or a watermark of Make My Trip because that's where I shared my experience with, and Make My Trip, of course, enabled it to streamline the entire ecosystem, and that's why um, it's plugged there, but it's etched in there forever. So other people who are coming in and seeing their timeline will always see that. So uh, if you are part of their lifeline, you have to make sure that is shown appropriately within Facebook.
Okay. Okay. So and another question that always comes up in my mind and is when you think of creating any viral campaign, even on Facebook, there's a lot of companies out there, including Social Apps HQ, which are offering you a good set of off-the-shelf kind of an applications. And but usually when you want to really go and try to create an app that exactly suits your requirement, you end up creating a custom apps. And then there are a lot of companies out there who helps you to do that. So what are the guidelines? Like how should you go about, how should you, when you should consider the off the shelf, when you should consider custom, and if there are some good inputs you can provide all of us.
I think that's a very relevant issue and concern for us as well, because we have rarely done any custom app except for a couple of clients. Mostly it's been off-the-shelf products, and that's where we have been focused on. So let me break it down into 2 parts. One is the product development of around an app, and the second part is the decision making that has to happen on the client's end in terms of what kind of campaign they want to run. So a good product takes time and energy to build it. As previous product manager and as an entrepreneur, I know that takes time, and you have to streamline everything, and you look at the numbers and you say which application take, which not to take, how do you integrate, this is not working, that is working. And over time, there are iterations that happen that basically build a product into something that is today, and it works really, really well. So that is time consuming as well as costly. Um, but that's the advantage of off-the-shelf product. So for example, you can buy pretty much any app off the shelf for few thousand rupees per month on a SaaS-based offering in the market. And they are hosted on really good servers. They work really well. You don't have to worry about a thing and gets to start. So that's one part. So on the other hand, when you're building a custom app, usually it's very campaign driven. यार पुलिस से पहले campaign चलना 10 दिन रह गए, and so an engineer sits around, builds a product, looks as to what design has been finalized, but the internal things don't work really well. I have heard from numerous people saying, yeah, वो app बनवाई थी, but वो बीच में crash हो गई, and it's not working anymore. And those 21 days or 30 days of campaign was like sleepless in Seattle, and I couldn't sleep, and people were spamming and this and that. So there is that particular aspect of getting it built in a custom way. That being said, there are few companies that do really well. They charge a little higher, but they do. They've built a template and they're trying to reproduce the apps again and again. So that's from a product perspective. So you want a very fully baked product where a lot of thinking has been done, versus something that looks and feels what you want to do, but it's not a fully baked product. You'll get 50% of the value in running the campaign. The things of the 5 points that I made around, hey, it has to be mobile friendly, it has to do this, it has to do that, and after 2 years of learning and as to what really works. So that learning will not be there. Now comes the client's end. The client end is there are few decisions that they have to make. A, how much is their budget? B, how much is their time available to them? And resources available to them. Sometimes when you talk to e-commerce, transactional companies, there are a lot of engineers in the company. So they're not really afraid of getting something built, but it just takes like 2 months to build a good app, 1 month to build a good app, plus learning of a new platform for the developer, versus paying a few thousand rupees and getting it done with. And then how much of your vision can be accomplished within these off-the-shelf apps or not. So if it is supporting some broader campaign that you have decided, and off-the-shelf apps, which are usually very, very configurable these days, are not really supporting it, by all means, build a good one, build a new app, and go for it. And I see a lot of FMCGs um, doing that on an ongoing basis. And it's, I think, partly because agencies are pushing them to buy those apps and charge them again and again for it. But uh, the value of a photo upload app built 10th time from grounds up is not really there. So if it supports a broader objective, broader campaign, and everything has to be lined up because that's what it's really about, then sure, go for the custom app. We have built a couple of custom apps because that's what people really wanted. Uh, but as a product, as a price point, and as a time to market customers, that's what I would.
Got it. Great. I think very well answered. So, I mean, just to add to that, I think app is ultimately a product and we need to realize it. It's just not one-off thing. It's a product. And unless you have I think the question you need to ask is, do you have the internal skills to create a viral technology social product? If you have, and you're willing to spend that much time and resources, probably custom would make sense. Otherwise, rely on the people who have done it multiple times and have evolved their product over a period of time, and try to see if your strategy can fit in with that. And that probably will give you at the end much better results, or you'll be somewhere hanging between. Great. So that's some more questions to ask. I'll just put up a sort of a small poll for all of you. This is just for our knowledge purpose. Uh, So I'm launching it in front of you. How many of you have used an app and which one have you used it? Whether it's a custom made, off the shelf or none. And just respond to this, and I'll also sort of display the result of this Q&A to all of you so that you know who all are actually attending it. Right? So while you're answering this question, let's take some more questions. Um, uh, Asmita, she's asking a question. How is this new functionality of verified accounts on Facebook impact the app development, app trend in future? So any input on that, Rajat?
Yeah, I did look at that. I think more than the app development, it impacts gaining legitimacy as a brand, because there are a lot of brand pages which have these clones, and clones have sometimes higher users than the page than the brand itself. Versus impacting app development, I'm not really sure how that will impact it.
Got that. So that's something that we yet to see. So another set, there are a lot of questions actually around whether we can develop an ad for a particular domain or a particular geography. So you have any guidelines, I mean, for which geography or for which sort of domain, um, like the app will suit, or creation of a Facebook app or a viral app will suit more than the other? So any take on that?
Yeah, so it's a little hard to answer, but let's try to answer it much more on a psychological way versus industry specific. So if you can create a campaign or a concept that hinges on borderline narcissism or self actualization, um, that will go very far. So if you think about contest, photo contest per se, uh, cutest baby contest, um, who is going to be the model of the school, or hottest girl of the school contest. These kind of contests really work well, versus trip down the memory lane and put up your picture of nostalgia that that reminds you of your school. type of contest. So if you can appeal, if your industry inherently can appeal to that particular behavior, that particular inner urge, then you will win by building an app. You have a higher chance of doing that. Fashion is a great industry. A lot of good apps have been built, um, and people are able to take full advantage there. Um, E-commerce, not so much. Um, E-commerce like books, not so much. Fashion, yes. Myntra is doing a good job with it. Uh, Jabon is also doing a lot of good work with it. So you have to pick your industry and figure out whether you can drive that particular urge or utility. For example, ICICI built a Facebook app so that you can log in from Facebook and do your entire transaction right over there. So there's a utility aspect to it. I think it's a little bit too much because people are not going to do a lot of interaction within Facebook. But uh, the utility will work, um, urgency will work, appealing to the inner narcissism, inner selfishness of an individual will work. So you have to think more on those lines when you're building it up.
Got it. Great. By the way, the survey result, just wanted to share that with you. 31% have said custom, and 31 have said off the shelf, and 42% have said none of these. So there are equal number of people who are actually opting for the custom and off the shelf. So that's the current status. Okay, guys. So I'm launching another question. This is regarding our workshop. So we do digital marketing workshop and social media workshop. So if you want to do any of those programs, just click on the right option and somebody from our team will call you. If you don't want to do it, that's also fine. And by the time you're answering this question, we'll pick up some more questions.
One question I hear from Atul about brands that are that are hosting contests without any apps and not getting banned. Cadbury Boneville got banned last year, and their agency got changed after that, right after that. So pages do get banned if someone reports them or somehow Facebook finds about it. It's best you don't get into that because Facebook can be very finicky in terms of restoring your app. A lot of them will just not they'll not even answer to your question in most of the cases. So don't try that.
Got that. I think this is a mistake. Lot of brands in India, personally, I've observed a lot of them do the same, and it's just a matter of chance that they're not being
Yeah.
getting. Facebook is not catching them. Okay, so let me see if I've missed out any of the questions, or let me see some of the questions on the pages that you guys might have asked. So another question being asked by Naina is how to promote social cause through apps, keeping in mind the budgetary constraints. So is there some special advantage offered by Facebook for social cause app promotion, or how to go about that?
Not by Facebook in terms of special things, but I think it it depends on the type of cause. Like sometimes there are causes around the local causes. So using Facebook events as a way to getting people to come to attend that particular cause, participate in that cause, can go really well. Um, so that combined with a page, Facebook page, where you show pictures about and talk about what you have been doing, um, because it's kind of a brand awareness as well. So over time, people get engaged, and when they keep receiving updates, and a lot of them will keep, a lot of them will participate not now, but later on.
Right. Akshay, you're saying that your question was not answered. Actually, you've asked a lot of questions. I don't know which question you're talking about. If you have a microphone, then I can unmute you if you're there. Yeah, Akshay, I've unmuted you. Is there anything you want to ask?
Yeah, my question was regarding B2B and B2C companies. Whatever we spoke, I guess, was targeting a B2C company. My question was whether a viral app works for a B2B company or not. And if it does, then are the following questions.
Can you tell me what kind of B2B you have in mind?
Um we are working into real estate, so can you just talk about it?
Okay, so we are working with a um, brokerage firm that basically most of the investors work with them. Uh, so they underwrite projects, so on and so forth. Uh, so for a lot of these guys, there are new projects that keep coming, and they need a way for to reach out to them. They need multiple channels to reach out to them, as well as grow awareness uh, and get more people interested in what they're offering. So,
Right.
the concept of viral is has to be taken into account of what your who your customer is and what your customer size is for possible audiences. If I'm focusing on HNIs in India and there are only 10,000 of them, don't expect the app to go, get uh, 500,000 users because they
Correct,
are
correct.
mostly irrelevant.
Right.
So um, you can use the same concepts to get more of these 10,000 people. Uh, but you have to focus on different aspects, different parts as well. So Facebook is one, but mobile app is another one. So for this particular customer, they got an app developed because they want to share certain things that they don't want it to be in public. So it's a private app. They release it to their users, and they syndicate. They talk about the investment opportunities, the return, the sale offers that are coming through that mobile app. So you can use technology to streamline communication. So instead of having to call 50 or 100 or 500 of your potential customers, current and potential customers, you can basically use a Facebook app plus a mobile app to get to them faster.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
At the
Thanks.
same time, I had one more question. Can I ask it?
Sure, Akshay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. See, as you said, depending on our TG, we must be having different objectives. Most of the apps have sales as their objectives, but in a B2B firm specifically, it is not that. So can you throw some light on, depending on various objectives, how should we deal with it? And if it is a vast question, if the scope of the question is very vast, probably you can answer it offline or some other way, whichever you find
Yeah,
convenient.
I think we will take it offline. Kapil will share my number. Um, so let's take it offline and talk about that in detail. There are many ways to think about this. I think first of all we have to just focus on what your objectives are and who's your new audience, who's your potentially new customer, what are the typical ways they're acquired, and what do you do currently to remain in contact with your current audience. And then we basically, figure out ways to optimize or find new channels to make it better.
Sounds good.
Got it. Great. Thanks, Akshay. So guys, I think there are a lot of questions that are still not answered. So what I would do is sometime by early next week, we'll send you a mail which would have the summary of this session as well as the recording of this session. And I'll also share the contact details of Rajat and myself. And if you have any particular question, you can actually, or you want to address it individually, you can contact us. Or else we'll do the blog post on the whole session, and you can just put up your question as a comment there, and we'll get your question addressed there as well. So it's already 4:07. We've taken 7 more minutes. So I think it's time. So we should close the session. So I really want to thank all of you for taking time out, and I hope you found it valuable. I personally have learned a lot of new things about application that I was not aware of earlier. So thanks a lot, Rajat, for having a great, insightful session for all of us, and hope to see you sometime else also in the other interaction.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot for having me. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. The session is closed.
Good to talk.
Thanks.
Good to talk to you all. Bye.
Same here. Thanks, Rajat.